Hello and welcome to another battle report. So here I am once again with the Demons of Khorne, and I'm sure some people will be familiar with this list already. I have been trying out a few different options with the other models that I've painted up, like a Blood Throne and a Soul Grinder and so on, but I keep coming back to this list because I just like the way it works. It performed quite well in a tournament earlier on this year. I like how it operates, and if it's not broke, don't fix it, as they say. Shout out to James at Triple Crown Wargaming, who's been doing a series on the, I think they call it 20-0 Tactics, where he's talking about the different styles of army that you see in competitive lists, which I think is a quite good way at sort of classifying those different strategies which competitive armies have. And this one falls neatly into that multiple attacking threats style of army, where you've got these Bloodletters, Blood Crushers, and the Bloodthirster, two units of Blood Crushers, Bloodletters, and Bloodthirster. So 4 units there. Which are combat focused, of course, killy and fast. You know, the Bloodletters with the Banner of Swiftness, the Crushers, Movement 7, and of course the Bloodthirster flies. And although neither one of those units is going to be particularly strong on a one-to-one, head-to-head combat, because they're fast and very manoeuvrable, you don't want to get 2 of them charging you at the same time, and those really are the attacking threats. And of course you got the cannons for support, the Furies for chaff, and the Fleshhounds for chaff clearance. And so I like the way the army works. It's fast, it's manoeuvrable, you can manoeuvre around the board really easily, which also is a big contrast to my dwarves. Of course, I play dwarves as well. So I'm up against the Bretonnians, and for those of you who've been following my battle reports for a little while, you've probably seen this army before in various stages of development. So it's great to have it on the tabletop now, all fully painted, with a few new models as well. So we've got this lovely old Citadel Dragon, Horn Dragon I think it's called originally, yeah, it just looks lovely there, as you can see. I can't remember the exact style of dragon that it's being used as today. I know Drew was preparing for taking his Bretonnians to the Cardiff tournament, so we were playing with some of the rules with that. Anyway, he's got this dragon in the list, and there it is on the left flank there. Moving along, we've got 3 Grail Knights, and I wasn't actually aware that you could take units of 3 Grail Knights, but there we are. We've got the next unit of Knights Errant, and there's a lot of them there. You can try and count them yourself. There's the 2 Paladins in the unit as well, one of them being the BSB, and the level 4 on Life Prophetess. Moving along, we've got the Men-at-Arms, about 30 of them. Love these models. I think I talked about them before on a previous bat rep, but yeah, just fantastic, and now they're all painted, they look great. And there's a level 2 on the Law of Light, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Bretonnians normally have access to the Law of Light, so that must be a quirk of the tournament as well. And then we've got the Knights of the Realm, less of those, there's just about 8 of them or something, with the Lord. Another small unit of 3 Grail Knights. I guess these Grail Knights are going to be used as a kind of chaff roll, but we'll see. I'm not too sure. We've got the Green Knight in the list as well, who of course we've put the model in the woods there so that we don't forget to roll for him. But there are 2 woods on the table, as you'll see in a moment, so he could appear from either of those locations. And then behind those fields, we've got 3 Pegasus Knights ready to take that flank. They're not able to deploy right on the flank because we're playing this scenario whereby the deployment zone is kind of most of that side of the table, but not the corner, and you've got to try and get your units into the other player's deployment zone. I forget what it's called, but it's one of the scenarios on the Cardiff tournament, and it's kind of like a breakthrough scenario anyway, where you've got to get your units into the opponent's deployment zone, and if they're point-scoring units, as in they have a standard bearer or something, then you get some extra VPs at the end. So with the Demons deployment then, it's my bottom left corner where I can't deploy, and on my bottom right corner I've got my big horde of Bloodletters, and I think I kind of got a bit of an advantage really against Bretonnia because I've got a big unbreakable unit. I've got the Killing Blow on there, and you know, any big unbreakable unit or big stubborn unit is going to be difficult for Bretonnia because they want to just break you on the charge, right? So if you can put a big unit like that, which is quite fast as well, they're movement 6 with the Banner of Swiftness, put them on the flank there, I've kind of got an unbreakable flank, and I can just swing them round that flank while I've got my Blood Crushers in the middle, which can just sort of hang back until those Bloodletters get around, and then that gives the Bretonnians something to think about. Do they go into my blood crushers? Do they come to my bloodletters? And I can create a kind of pincer movement. Got my bloodthirster quite central there. I've got the luxury of not being up against trebuchets this time, so he can just provide that big 18-inch leadership bubble where it's needed. 2 skull cannon in support. I've split them up. Obviously got 1 on each side, trying to take a pot shot at that dragon whenever I can. It's hiding behind impassable terrain at the moment, so I doubt I'll be able to get 2 shots at it on turn 1, but you know, you can't really hide for skull cannons for long because obviously they can move and shoot, so I should be able to get 1 shot off on turn 1. The Fury's just hanging back as usual, ready to come in and get in the way when they're needed, and my Flesh Hounds are there right on the line, ready to dash out and cause some trouble as early as possible. So here we are, all set up for this breakthrough scenario. Lovely looking snow-covered tabletop there with the evergreen trees. The Bloodthirster rolled, for his 2 gifts, he rolled the multiple wounds 2 on the lesser gift, which I normally would swap that for an ASF sword or something like that, but actually because he's got this dragon in the list, it's quite tempting actually just to take that multiple wounds 2 and then just put the Bloodthirster into the dragon at some point, because you know the Bloodthirster's got higher initiative and you know 6-7 attacks, so with multiple wounds 2 I think I could just take that dragon out in 1 round of combat, so I end up keeping that. And on the greater gifts I roll the no armor saves one, which I keep as well, because normally again I would swap that, because Bloodthirster being strength 7 on the charge, strength 6 normally, there's normally enough armor piercing there, but against Bretonnian knights who've all got 2 up saves, why not take the no armor saves gift as well? So he's got the multiple wounds 2 and the no armor saves. The prophetess rolls up, I think I've got this right, if I remember correctly, Throne of Vines, Regrowth, Dwellers and Flesh to Stone, and the level 2 on Light rolls Shems and Vase Protection. So yeah, interesting game to see how this is going to go, because there's a number of different elements there which I don't normally face in a Bretonnian list. You've got the big brick of men-at-arms, not sure how that's going to be used, perhaps as a sort of anvil while the knights hang back, we'll see. And then I've got these units of 3 Grail Knights, which, you know, Grail Knights can be pretty tricky. You know, if they get a flank or they charge into my Flesh Hounds or something, they might win combat. So we'll see how he deals with them. And we've got these Pegasus Knights. The Pegasus Knights Vanguard up onto my right flank initially, and we're off. Demons turn 1, so the Pegasus Knights have vanguarded up just in front of that house, poking out of the Bretonnian deployment zone there, opening themselves up to a long bomb charge from my Flesh Hounds. And we decided to go for it because my Flesh Hounds are going in that direction anyway, and if they fail and then get charged by the Peg Knights, that opens them up to a counter charge from my Bloodthirster anyway, so not sure they'll even do that. So we decided to go for it, and we get it. They roll a 10 and those Flesh Hounds are in. I'm licking my lips thinking, great, we'll take out those Peg Knights, and that's one less thing to worry about. My horde of Bloodletters swings round that flank with a big 12-inch march, while my cannons re-maneuver to try and take a pot shot at that dragon and at the Knights Errant with the characters in it. In the middle of the park, though, my Blood Crushers just back up a little bit, because I'm outmatched really from those Lances of Knights with those Grail Knights in support. So my Blood Crushers just back up to try and wait for my Bloodletters to get round the flank, so I can sort of even things up there in the middle. Fury's just moving out the way, and the other Flesh Hounds just sort of staying where they are at the moment. I think they moved up a little bit. The Bloodthirster moves up also to just make sure now those Flesh Hounds are in combat, I want them within the 18-inch leadership bubble range, so the Bloodthirster moves up. Obviously no trebuchets on the board, so he's not really afraid of getting singled out. We shoot the cannons. They do nothing, unfortunately. I think they both miss, but at least not a miscast. And then the close combat, the Flesh Hounds fluff it. They just completely waste their attacks. I think they might have got 1 wound, but then the Peg Knights strike back, kill a couple of them, and then we lose combat. We stick there, of course, because we've got a lot of wounds, but that was a bit disappointing. On the Winds of Magic, I think we rolled Khorne actually, but I don't think anything was hit by it. And then on to Bretonnian's turn 1. So Bretonnian's turn 1 is another very swift turn. the Green Knight comes out of the woods on the left-hand side and just sort of parks itself right in front of my Fleshhounds, while those Grail Knights move up around that side of the little building in the middle of the board. I guess that Green Knight is just being used as chaff at the moment, but it'll work against my Fleshhounds, because Fleshhounds are not fast cavalry, so we can't go around him. And then the magic phase is uneventful. I think Drew gets really unlucky with his dice and sort of fails to cast his spells and doesn't get anything off. The Pegasus Knights win combat again, and I lose another Fleshhound or two, and that's the end of turn 1. So it's Demons turn 2, and while I'm not strong enough to take on these Bretonnians head-to-head in the middle of the board yet, I am looking at these units on the flanks, thinking, can I take them out without sort of engaging those big lances of knights? I've got the Green Knight on the left-hand side here, and I decide to put my Skull Cannon into the flank of the Green Knight, and I'm thinking that should be enough to take him out, really, because I've got the D6+1 Strength 6 hits on the impact. That will probably kill him outright. Or at least add to the wound, so hopefully I can pop him on the combat res. Might get lucky with the killing blow as well, and of course I've got the beast attacks. When he attacks me as well, I've got 4 wounds, toughness 5, 3 up, 5 up save. Those chariots are pretty good, so that should be enough to kill the Green Knight, hopefully. And on the other side, these Peg Knights engage with my Fleshhounds, who are slowly getting whittled down. I decided just to put my Bloodthirster in there. It does open up the Bloodthirster's flank to those 3 Grail Knights, which is a risk, of course, while those Grail Knights do have, with Devastating Charge, 9 Strength 6 attacks on the charge, plus the horses. The Bloodthirster's initiative 9, so, and he's got no armor saves on his weapon, so I should just be able to take out those Grail Knights, before they get to attack me. So I'm not expecting a charge from those Grail Knights, but we'll see. And then with the rest of the movement then, I'm swinging my Bloodletters around the flank, as you can see in the picture. My rough plan in my head being to create an encirclement with the Blood Crushers and the Bloodletters, so those Lancers of Knights have a real decision to make, whether they go into my Crushers and risk getting that horde in the flank, nobody wants that, or whether they turn to face my horde, and then those Blood Crushers can come in the flank, and really they're going to have to use those men-at-arms well to stop there being some flank charges there, because my units are fast and we've got a big frontage there. The cannon misses again, trying to hit that dragon. Still can't take any wounds off it. In the magic, I roll +1 ward save on the Winds of Magic. Fantastic. Close combat, the Bloodthirster hacks up a couple of Peg Knights. Oh no, wait, he's locked in the challenge, so he kills the Peg Knight champion. And I think that last Peg Knight sticks, so we're stuck in combat there for another round. And the Chariot rolls a 2 for the impact hits, fluffs the rest of the attacks. Unfortunately, that Green Knight is left on 1 wound, even after the combat resolution, I can't remember how it went exactly, but he's left on 1 wound, survives, and I think my Chariot takes a couple of wounds. So yeah, not ideal. I was hoping just to take the Green Knight out, so it looks like that I'm going to lose that Chariot to the Grail Knights next turn, but never mind. And meanwhile, my Blood Crushers in the middle are just staying put. So Bretonnians turn 2, and the Knights are getting closer inch by inch, but haven't quite made that decisive movement yet to try and engage any of my units. We do have 1 charge though with the Grail Knights into the flank of my Skull Cannon, who proceed to destroy it and overrun into my Fleshhounds as expected. The other unit of Grail Knights moves to kind of chaff up my big horde there, as the dragon flies over into a new position on that side of the board, ready to get involved. It's just in front of the Bretonnian lines there, and giving it quite a few options of things that it could charge, so I'm going to have to deal with that dragon soon. In the magic phase, it doesn't go so well for Drew here. I think he fails with the big dwellers below. Tried to cast the big dwellers and fails it. I think he gets off Shems on my Blood Crushers, but I just let it go because I've got the +1 magic, +1 ward save at the moment, and they've got magic res 1. So I think they have 3-up ward against it, and so they just managed to do sort of 1 wound with Shems or something. And in the close combat phase, the Bloodthirster and the last remaining Fleshhound there managed to finish off that last Pegasus Knight, and the Bloodthirster is ready to get engaged in combat again on Demon's turn 3. And that's exactly what happens in Demon's turn 3. So I declare a charge with the Bloodthirster into the flank of the dragon, and the Blood Crushers on the left go into the flank of those Grail Knights. They have charged my Fleshhounds, but they haven't been able to attack yet, because that will be done in this turn. And of course my Blood Crushers go into the Grail Knights right in front of them. Sorry, Bloodletters go into the Grail Knights in front of them. My Furies just move into position to chaff up those Lances of Knights, because it's go time now. I'm making my charges, so those Furies come out to make sure that those Knights can't go into my Blood Crushers. My other unit Blood Crushers moves up to react to whatever's going on. Still don't know what those Men-at-Arms are going to do, because they're level with the Lances of Knights at the moment. Are they going to move forward and those Knights are going to move back? I'm not sure what's going to happen yet, but we'll see. I do manage to take out a few Knights Errant this round with the Skull Cannon, so that Skull Cannon is still alive and firing. Managed to get a couple of wounds off this turn. And we move into close combat, so the Bloodthirster hacks apart that dragon. I mean, it's not even funny. Like, he's got the multiple wounds too. I think he gets something like 8 wounds on that dragon, and just takes it out. I mean, the Bloodthirster really kind of excels at a sort of 1-to-1 fight with another monster, because it's just a beast. But I pass my test to overrun, and he manages to stay put. Luckily, because I'm right in front of the Knights of the Realm there with the Lord. It'd be nice to put the Bloodthirster into the flank there, but the thing is, I'd have to take the challenge then, and I don't want to get into combat with that Lord just in case he's got the heroic killing blow on his magic sword there, which he might well have. I don't know. The Bloodletters, as you can imagine, go straight through those 3 Grail Knights, and one of them gets away. And is fleeing into the woods there just behind my Bloodthirster, but not much I can do about that. And my Blood Crushers kill those Grail Knights. I think one of them flees, and we pursue with both, and then my Hounds end up pursuing into the Green Knight. So they're in combat with the Green Knight they previously backed off from. Not sure how that's going to go, actually, because I'm not sure what the Green Knight's initiative is, but I guess it's more than 4, so he'll probably hack up a few Fleshhounds, and if I don't do any wounds to the Green Knight, he's only got 1 wound left, so I need 1 wound to kill him, but if I don't, then I'll probably lose combat, and I might end up just stuck in combat with that Green Knight for a few turns, which won't be so bad, but at least it stops him from respawning somewhere else, I guess. And I think that's all for Demon's turn 3 then. I can't remember what I rolled for the Winds of Magic. It might have just been a 7. But I think I'm in quite a good position now because, okay, I've lost 1 Skull Cannon, and the Bretts have lost the 2 units of Grail Knights. Oh, sorry, 1 Grail Knight's there fleeing, but they've basically lost 2 units of Grail Knights, the Dragon, and the Pegasus Knights. So I'm in quite a good position. Those Lances aren't able to get into my Blood Crushers. They do have the option of going through those Furies into my Bloodletters, but then of course that leaves them a bit exposed there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the Bretonnians react. So Bretonnians turn 3, and the characters in the Lances of Knights just burst out of the unit. So we get a charge from the BSB into the Furies in front of them, leaving the Knights Errant standing still behind them. We get the other Paladin and the Lord from the Knights of the Realm unit also coming out of the units, not charging, but sort of moving around the flank of my Bloodthirster, ready to react to what the Bloodthirster does. And it's the Men-at-Arms that charge the other unit of Furies. So we got the BSB and the Men-at-Arms going into the Furies, with the Lances of Knights staying put, characters leaving those units. In the magic phase, the Damsel gets a miscast, trying to cast Fast Protection on the Men-at-Arms, and rolls the magical feedback one where the, I think that's what it's called, where the wizards each take a hit, and she loses a wound. So she's left on 1 wound now against some Furies, and I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, I think I should strike first here. So let's see if we can take this damsel out with some Furies. And I think they also get off Flesh to Stone on the Knights of the Realm. And I'm presumably because those Knights of the Realm are sort of very close to my Bloodthirster. But to be honest, I mean, I probably won't charge them with the Bloodthirster anyway. Firstly, because that Lord has now positioned itself to countercharge my Bloodthirster if I do that. But also because it's not good to get the Bloodthirster alone into a Lance of Knights, because then you know, I'm open to being stuck there for a couple of rounds of combat, and those characters can react, and I don't know what magic items they have. It's better if I just sort of fly over the top and pick up battle where it's a little bit stacked in my favour. But yeah, in close combat, what happens? So the Green Knight hacks up 1 or 2 Fleshhounds, but the Fleshhounds take the last wound off the Green Knight and overrun, so they're up and away on my left flank. The BSB fluffs it, only kills 1 Fury or something like that, and ends up locked in combat with those Furies for another round. And the Men-at-Arms fluff it as well, and only kill 1 or 2 Furies and crumble another couple, and they're left locked in combat with a couple of Furies. And I just couldn't believe it. It's the first time my Furies have been charged and haven't died, because typically they, even if they only lose by a little bit because they're only leadership 2, they end up just popping from the instability anyway. But it's always good to mark them with the Mark of Khorne, because then they can use the Bloodthirster's leadership if they need to, and this sort of saved them that time. So hopefully I can get a counter charge on those Men-at-Arms. And that's where we're left then after the end of turn 3. So Demons turn 4 now, and it's time to turn the screw and see if I can get some points here out of one of these Lances and Knights. I think I'm going to go for the Knights Errant, because I've got my Fleshhounds coming around the flank now. I've got my units of Blood Crushers, which are now unengaged on the left flank as well. I've got that BSB to deal with, but hopefully I can, get a good charge off and pop him. The Bloodthirster decides to go over the top then into the flank of the Knights Errant. The Blood Crushers go into the Peasants. Unfortunately, they're in the front, so because they're currently engaged with the Furies, I can only get 1 Blood Crusher into combat, which may mean that I lose combat on that first round, but we'll see. My other Crushers reform. They're a bit too close to that building to make a charge, unfortunately, but they turn to face the action in the middle of the board. I roll a double 1 on the Winds of Magic. First time I've done that, actually. So I've got to take instability tests wholesale. Not too bad, actually. I can't complain from the result. I think I just lose a wound on the Skull Cannon, and my lone Fleshhound dies, the one on the right flank who'd been survived those Pegasus Knights. Unfortunately, I thought I'd keep the points for that unit, but unfortunately he dies. Khorne just returns him to the plane of the Demons. The Bloodletters make a charge on that one lone Grail Knight that just rallied last turn. Hopefully I can overrun, if I just kill that Grail Knight, and overrun into the Lord, who's just all by himself there now. And while that Lord is a danger to my Bloodthirster, I don't think he's got much chance against the Horde of Bloodletters. And actually, I get some more luck, because I'm able to fire the cannon at the Lord. Now he's all by himself. And I think he fails his lookout, sir, and I take a couple of wounds off him. And was it the Paladin? I can't remember now. I think it's the Lord. I take a couple of wounds off the Lord with something. I think it was the cannon takes a couple of wounds off him, and then he's left on 1 wound. But the Bloodletters don't overrun far enough to reach him, so he's just left alone in the same position he was with that 1 wound. The Bloodthirster just ends up annihilating the unit champion, but the Knights Errants don't reform to face the Bloodthirster because of that impassable building that's there. They would have to lose their lance formation, which means they'd be in danger of losing their steadfast sooner. So I think they just stay as they are to hopefully get some more fortune next time to see if they can do something about my Bloodthirster. My Blood Crushers do lose combat against the Men-at-Arms because they've just got ranks, and I'm not able to kill enough of them to stack up my combat res. So I think I lose a wound or 2 on the instability, but it's hopefully should go my way next time when I get all my attacks. And the BSB finishes off those Furies and is left alone there in the middle of the board, but with Bretonnian's turn next, I think he should be able to get out of the way of those Blood Crushers. So Bretonnian's turn 4, and the Knights of the Realm decide to go into my Blood Crushers. Now, I don't have the right picture here. I don't think I took a picture of Bretonnian's turn 4, so this picture is after Bretonnian's turn 4 at the beginning of Daemon's turn 5. But if you imagine those Blood Crushers there are still locked in combat with those men-at-arms, the Knights of the Realm come in, but they can only get sort of one of them touching my Blood Crushers because the men-at-arms are in the way. So they don't get many attacks. There's only 7 of them in total, but they can only get attacks from one file. The Lord and the Paladin, who are by themselves, sort of maneuver to look at the rear of my Bloodthirster and hopefully, you know, get a charge in to help out those Knights Errant in turn 5. And the BSB goes in all by himself into my Blood Crushers, and I guess he's pretty tanky. I think he's got a 1-up rerollable, so he thinks he can just man those Blood Crushers by himself. Good luck to him. I can't remember what happens in the Magic phase, actually, whether they actually get off anything. I think they might get off Flesh to Stone, you know, on the Knights Errant to boost their toughness. I think they get off some sort of buff on them. I think it is the Flesh to Stone. So those, you know, Knights Errant can hopefully survive my Bloodthirster a bit better, but nothing else of note. And in close combat, though, so these Knights of the Realm have come in. They don't get many attacks on my Blood Crushers. My Blood Crushers are able to kill quite a few of those men-at-arms because, you know, they've got all the attacks now. And the Bretonnians lose combat, and they are steadfast, of course, but those men-at-arms just fail their stubborn rerollable leadership test, and they do an epic flee towards the back of the board there. And yeah, the Knights of the Realm stick, and they're able, you know, locked in combat with the Blood Crushers there. But yeah, shame, those men-at-arms supposed to be that solid anvil in the middle of the board there, but they end up just running. The BSB mans it, who, you know, does really well, actually. It's annoying for me because this happened quite over several round of combats from now till the end of the game, where the BSB does 0 wounds against my Blood Crushers. The Blood Crushers do 0 wounds against the BSB. It's a draw. I win by 1 because I've got a Musician and he passes, and they just stick there. I only need that 1 killing blow, of course, to go straight through his armour, but I don't manage to find that 6. The Bloodthirster ends up taking the challenge from the Prophetess. I guess Drew was just thinking, well, if the Bloodthirster can just unload into that unit, then it's not going to last long. So he challenges with the Prophetess, and the Bloodthirster just hacks up that wizard. There's no characters left now, so next round of combat, it's going to be time for those Knights Errants to die. And that's where we are then at the end of Brett's turn 4. So this pick you're looking at is after Demon's turn 5 has begun, and I've moved my Fleshhounds, as you can see, all the way around to try and get in the way to stop that Lord from going into the back of my Bloodthirster. I can't manoeuvre in a way where I can stop the Paladin and the Lord from going in, but it's the Lord I'm afraid of, because he's the one I'm worried that's got the Heroic Killing Blowsword. I don't even know if he has it, but anyway, I manoeuvre in a way so that that Lord can't charge the back of my Bloodthirster. My Bloodletters swivel all the way around, ready to do some damage. That unit is still pretty intact, actually. I think it's only lost 1 or 2 models from the Grail Knights earlier on in the game, so I've still got a big horde of Bloodletters there. And then we just move straight on to the close combat phase. And as you can imagine, the Bloodthirster just hacks up loads of those Knights Errant. I think they lose. I think they're down to like 4 models left now, but they are still steadfast because they're in that lance formation, so they stick. The Blood Crushers win combat against the Knights of the Realm because, of course, after the initial charge, I've got the upper hand there with the Strength 5 Juggernauts, and that's where we are then at the end of Demon's turn 5. It's looking like a good day for the Demons now, because although, you know, everything's pretty much locked in combat, there is the wild card of this Lord who may be able to kill these flesh hounds and get a charge off of my bloodthirster on turn 6, but he only has 1 wound, so hopefully I'll be able to kill him before he gets to attack me, but we'll see. Bretonnian's turn 5, and there's no wizards left on the table, so it's just movement and combat. The Green Knight comes out of the woods on the right hand side, having forgotten to actually roll for the Green Knight in turn 4, but he comes back on turn 5 and moves round to get in front of that horde of bloodletters. Again, just sort of using him as a chaff roll. The Lord and the Paladin both go into those flesh hounds, hopefully to take them out so they can try and get into my bloodthirster at some point. And then we go straight into close combat, don't we? Yeah, so let's do it. The flesh hounds stick remarkably. I guess the Paladin and the Lord just didn't manage to do enough wounds, and so they're going to have to stay in combat for another round. The BSB sticks again, another drawn combat. The Blood Crushers slowly whittling down those Knights of the Realm, but I think they stick. The Bloodthirster chews through loads more of those Knights Errant, and there's just 2 left, and they pass their leadership test. I can't remember what it was now, but of course they are in General's range and BSB range, so they managed to stick. And luckily, my Bloodthirster's just been able to sit there for a few rounds now, chewing through Knights and not getting countercharged by anything. So, you know, if you can do that with the Bloodthirster, great. He's a bit weak though if he gets countercharged in the flank, but so far I haven't had to deal with that. And yeah, I'm slowly sort of whittling these units down now, and I think in the last turn I may hopefully be able to get some more points. Demons turn 6 then, so I put my last remaining Skull Cannon into the flank of the Green Knight again, which is sort of a deja vu. But of course I got the big horde of bloodletters in the front of the Green Knight, so the Green Knight's a goner. They blow through the Green Knight and follow up into the Paladin. And in that combat then against the Flesh Hounds, we kill that Paladin, so then the Bloodletters are out of the combat, so we don't get to add our ranks and stuff, but just from the wounds that we've done, we end up beating the Lord, and he breaks, and the Lord flees. We don't catch him, but of course it's just we're on turn 6 anyway, so that Lord is taken out of action now. We finish both units of Knights, so the Blood Crushers kill the last of the Knights of the Realm, the Bloodthirster kills the last of the Knights of the Errant. So yeah, everything's dead or fleeing now, with the exception of this one BSB, who is just locked in combat with those 4 Blood Crushers, and that's not going anywhere. So last turn of the game then, Bretonnian's turn 6. There isn't really much to be done. The Lord rallies. I think the Green Knight does come back on again on the last turn, so unfortunately I don't get the points for him, but there's nothing else left. But in the close combat phase, what do you know? The BSB ends up getting a wound and beating the Blood Crushers by 1, and then I double 6 the break test, and that whole unit of 4 Blood Crushers just pops on turn 6. So a little bit of a silver lining there for the Bretonnians. So it finishes with just the BSB and the Green Knight on the board for the Bretonnians, and the Lord. The Lord's there with 1 wound, yeah, none of their units alive, and I lose those Blood Crushers. But yeah, a pretty solid victory for the Demons. So this is always a good matchup for the Demons, because obviously the Bretonnians need that charge, and if you've got unbreakable units, they can't break you on 1 round of combat, and so they have to grind it out, and that's not what they're good at. In addition, of course, having the killing blow on the Hellblades is horrible for Knights, and when you've got a Bloodthirster who rolls up multiple wounds too, and no armor saves on his weapon, he's just a machine for hacking up Knights and Dragons, which worked out pretty good for me. So, you know, I was just able to play my normal game, and as well, because there's no shooting there, I didn't have to worry about archers and trebuchets and stuff. I wasn't in a rush to get into combat, so I could do things like, you know, hang back and try and come round the flanks and pick off those weaker units first, like the Peg Knights, like the Green Knight all by himself on the flank, before trying to tighten the noose on those Lancers of Knights later in the game. From the Bretonnians' perspective, what could they do differently? There were a few new elements which I think are different than you see in a normal Bretonnian list, like those units of 3 Grail Knights, like the random dragon and the men-at-arms and things like that. But I think that the main thing is just making sure you clear out the enemy chaff. Demons have phenomenal chaff in Furies because they fly. They can just come over the top and get in the way, and they're not sort of within charge range. You know, if you've got a unit of 3 ground knights or a unit of mounted yeomen or whatever, you can't really use them to clear my chaff because my chaff aren't there. They're behind my lines, waiting to come over the top at some point. So, to clear the enemy chaff when they're sort of flying furies, you've got to find a way of zapping them with a magic missile, or picking them off with archers, or having some sort of ambush just to come around the back or something. I don't know, but it's hard to get rid of the furies. It's just 1 minute they're not even there, and all of a sudden they're just coming out of the skies and they're in your face. But you don't want to get bogged down with your lances and knights getting into units of furies and flesh hounds and things like that. You want them charging my main units so that you can break them. And it's just a really tough matchup for the Bretonnians. So I think they definitely did well in terms of not engaging my horde of bloodletters. And that horde of bloodletters didn't really do much all game, which is not bad for me because obviously it's points denial. You know, it's a big 600 point unit, which you're not getting anywhere near those points. But at the same time, it's always a threat, isn't it? And it just means that when you've got this big horde coming around the flank, the area of the board that you have to play on is getting smaller and smaller because you just can't engage with this big unbreakable unit. Yeah, so that's it. Hope you like it, guys. As usual, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Cheers. Speak to you all soon. Goodbye.